Yeah, she says the left will never stop trying to control us. Like, who's the one saying if you're gay, you can't get married? Who's the one saying if you're trans, you can't get gender-affirming care? Who is it that's saying if you're pregnant and you don't want to be pregnant, you can't have an abortion? Who's the one saying you can't have sex ed that will teach you how to not get pregnant in the first place? Like, it's not the left that wants to control people. Ray Comfort says, it doesn't matter how much we accomplish in our lives, the size of our Christian ministry, or how much money we leave behind. Everything boils down to whether we fear God.
That sounds like an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
But what am I saying?
I was going to say, interesting choice of words there. Like, why would you use the word fear? Like, I get the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom thing, but it's like, and I remember being a kid at the Christian high school I went to, I asked my Christian lifestyle class teacher, why does the Bible say to fear God when we're supposed, like, this was my question, is like, we're supposed to love God. God is supposed to love us. In a healthy, loving relationship, you're not supposed to be afraid of the other person. So why is the Bible telling us to fear God? And so he explained to me that when it says fear, what it really means is respect. And
yeah, that's
I actually,
the same thing that I was.
Yeah, I actually, I don't know if I could find the passages in a hurry, but I actually went through my Bible, and every time I came across the word fear in reference to fearing God, I crossed it out with a little pencil and I wrote respect beside it. So like, I actually, as a believing Christian, I changed my Bible because I did not like that it said fear. It didn't occur to me at the time that it's like, okay, well, if the all-powerful creator of the universe has this message for us and he wants to get it across in a perfect fashion, he can make sure that the translators translate that word as respect and not fear.
No, his power stops there, though. You don't understand that.
Yeah, no, I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. So, like, yeah, God is either an abusive... He either wants an abusive relationship with us where he is the abuser, or he is not powerful enough to make sure that his message gets transmitted properly. Those are your choices.
Jesus.
MTG is up next.
No. Why do you keep bringing the things that are close to my home?
I didn't know the Pensacola thing was close to your home. I'm sorry.
But you knew about this one.
I knew about this one, yes.
Okay.
But the national divorce thing that she's been promoting the last couple days is just so funny to me, though, because like she's like, oh well, we need to separate the red states from the blue states, you know, it's not a civil war, we just want to separate them, it's a national divorce. And it's like, what the fuck do you even mean by that? But like, first and foremost, if you do that national divorce thing, that like you do realize that the red states, like most of them, are propped up by tax dollars that come in from the blue states, right? Like, almost all of the red states are welfare states that have to have this money coming in order to survive. So, like, the national divorce would be really bad for the red states. And I'm sorry, sir, is that you live in one of those red... Well, no, yours is blue right now.
My state may be blue, but I live in this bitch's district.
Yeah.
I don't get to survive any of this.
Just do voter fraud harder next time.
I like how this tweet, she goes like, we don't want a civil war.
We're
not surrendering. Wait.
Yeah, that's...
What kind of South will rise again bullshit is this?
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was so funny. Like, that's just my perspective on it, is that like national divorce would take money away from the red states. That's what it would accomplish. And like, what does a national divorce even mean? Do they mean becoming the Confederate States of America or whatever? Like, become a separate country? Do they mean like be the same country but like
how many times
districts?
has Texas tried to secede in the last 100 years?
I don't know.
And that's probably your answer.
I don't know.
The answer is at least once a year for the last 100 years.
So Fusel says, not Americans, so not all deep into their politics, but isn't that the Jewish space laser female dog? Yeah, this is Jewish space laser lady. That was her thing, is that the Jews have space lasers that they're starting the California wildfires with for whatever reason.
We're tired of complaining.
So she wants to secede from the Union? Remind me how that went last time.
The South will rise again. Don't you understand? We're just trying. People say national divorce is a bad idea because the left will never stop trying to control us. They make the case for national divorce. We don't want a civil war, but the South will rise again.
Yeah, she says the left will never stop trying to control us. Like, who's the one saying if you're gay, you can't get married? Who's the one saying if you're trans, you can't get gender affirming care? Who is it that's saying if you're pregnant and you don't want to be pregnant, you can't have an abortion? Who's the one saying you can't have sex ed that will teach you how to not get pregnant in the first place? Like, it's not the left that wants to control people. I know, like, control people, this is with reference to, like, with her, it's probably with reference to, like, using pronouns or something. Where it's like, yeah, that's not control, that's just being polite. Like, that's just living in society. But, like, no, the right is clearly the one that's trying to exert control. Like, look at what they're doing at the Supreme Court. Yeah. Oh, that Google case scares me. I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do with that, but that actually fucking terrifies me.
Oh, Section 230?
Yeah. Because, like, if they actually rule in favor of, what is it, the plaintiffs? I don't know, whichever people are doing the lawsuit. If they rule in favor of them, then that is...
Or our channels basically stop existing as a concept.
Yeah, no, there's, like, then YouTube has to, like, crack down on moderation for absolutely everything, or just completely open it up and don't moderate anything. And given how advertisers basically run the show at YouTube, it's going to be the crackdown one. And yeah, I don't know what the internet would look like with that actually being the case. So that terrifies me. I hope occasionally this Supreme Court has made a good decision or two. I hope that this is one of them. I don't have great hopes for that, but I really hope it is.
Yeah, and we've seen this kind of stuff up in arms repeatedly.
This makes me need a beer. I'll be right back.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Stoff, thank you for making me commit wet. I'm gonna do that real quick. But no, stuff like this we see this all the time. A constant attempt to try to change the way the internet functions right now. And, like, the current way the internet functions, where it's up to individual private website holders to moderate their sites as best they can, and then the websites that happen to get the most traffic are the ones that become the most prolific. That's, from a purely capitalistic sense, that works for companies. So,
well, did you see the legal video on it?
I haven't seen the legal video on it yet. That's a thing that I need to actually sit down and watch. Yeah.
So the whole thing with Section 230 is, it was like the internet was this wild west in the 90s of, like, the precedent at the time was, like, if like a bookstore doesn't need to moderate the books that they have. They exert no moderation whatsoever. Any books that are in there, like if there's something illegal printed in a book or whatever, the bookstore cannot be held liable because they don't read every single book before they put it on their shelves. Yeah. Because that's not a good standard to hold for bookstores. But publishers like newspapers or book publishers or whatever, they were held to a different standard where they have to moderate their content. So, like, if they print something and it's illegal, then they are on the line for that, because they like, the nature of publishing is you had to have read that before you published it.
It's the difference between publishing and distributing.
Yeah. And so with the internet, and with, like, YouTube YouTube blogs, whatever, being, like, there's so much content, that basically initially what it was, if you made any effort whatsoever to moderate your content, then they treated you as a publisher. And so if anything illegal showed up on your website, like if it slipped past the moderation, because you had exerted some effort for moderation, you are now liable for that illegal content. Whereas if you just didn't exert any moderation whatsoever, they treated you more like the bookstore, where you're clearly not moderating, therefore you're not responsible for it. And so Section 230 was basically a protection that addressed this and said, okay, you're allowed to moderate, like the act of trying to moderate your space does not automatically make you liable for anything illegal that shows up that slips past the moderators, because we understand that there's just so much content that it's impossible to actually moderate everything. And so with Section 2, like with this case that's before the Supreme Court, if they rule in favor of the people that are doing the suing, I think that is the plaintiff, I might have the terminology wrong, I ain't a law talking guy, but if they rule in their favor, then that basically puts it back to the point where if you exert any moderation whatsoever, you're responsible for everything. Well, it was specific to the algorithm. So like the channels might still exist, but the way they're promoted will not work anymore.
So because YouTube is in a position where it already has to moderate some of its content for advertiser purposes and for COPPA purposes, they already have to do that. And there's already an established method that they utilize that would then suddenly make them viable, or that would suddenly make them accountable for all their content on all positions. As opposed to
so best case scenario, if the Supreme Court rules the wrong way in this, would be that they're like no website is allowed to algorithmically promote their videos anymore. It has to you have to search for what you already know you're going to look for. There will be no more recommendations, no more you've looked at stuff like this in the past, therefore look at this. And since that is the majority of channel growth, it's just going to cut everyone who isn't already a big creator off at the knees. And like, so, you know, it might not completely kill our channels, but it'll kill growth. I can kiss my aspirations of having 100,000 subscribers at some point goodbye.
Yeah, basically, that would suck for me as well. It would suck for all of us, as content creators.
I think I would probably fare better than most in that scenario, because I think most of my views do come from subscribers. It's something like 75%. I don't look at it very often, but it's pretty high up there. And I know like there are a lot of channels out there that like only 10% of their views come from subscribers. Those guys are fucked.
Which would be the opposite of how it is right now, because right now, by having more of your views come from non-subscribers, that means your channel's in a period of growth, and that's a good thing for you right now. By having more of your views from subscribers, you're in a point of channel stability, so if your numbers are good, you're fine, but if your numbers aren't great, then you're meh. But if that were to happen, that flips everything around. Suddenly channels like yours and mine are in a better spot.
Well, there's no, not really, because there's also subscriber rotation. So like as some people unsubscribe because they're now tired of this type of content, there are more people subscribing, and so like that rotation will then stop, so now anyone that unsubscribes, you don't get them replaced. Anywho, that's a completely different topic that I didn't even intend to cover tonight, but there we are.
Section 230, everybody. We like doing our oh god, I saw this one. Up yours, woke moralists. Tyranny is always petty, and petty tyranny will not save the planet.
I love your voice, when your impression of him.
It's not Oceans, though, I know.
I don't think I've heard Oceans. I like yours. Like what they call us snowflakes, but they get so upset over a sign saying please don't waste paper. Like, what? Like, tyranny is always petty. This isn't tyranny. This is saying, hey, could you please not waste as much stuff and put it in the compost instead of the garbage?
Yep.
Like, how is that tyranny? And petty. Like, petty is Jordan Peterson seeing a sign that says, please don't waste paper, and saying, up yours. I'm going to use an entire roll when I dry my hands. I mean, to be fair, he strikes me as the kind of guy that doesn't wash his hands after he uses the washroom, so an argument could be made that he's trying to save water.
I'm just imagining all of those deep fake Jordan Petersons of them just sitting there. Look, all I'm saying is I don't wash my hands because washing your hands is a very feminine thing to do. And look, when you invite feminism into the world, that begets chaos. If you want to clean an orderly house, you need a masculine house. So to keep the house clean and to invite less chaos, don't wash your hands. That would have been feminine.
I could see him saying that. Yes, absolutely. that tracks 100%. Back to the topic that I just segued away from abruptly. People are saying suddenly everyone would need a VPN to get video recommendations. Yeah, because, like, I mean, realistically, if YouTube has to get rid of the algorithm for the United States, it's probably going to go for everybody. But if they did leave it on, then yeah, VPN would be a good way to get recommendations, so you connect through another country or whatever. And then Lord of Uzkulak says, we all better go buy shares of Nord then. No, you need to buy shares of Surfshark and then sign up for Surfshark using code Rhino to get 83% off and 3 months for free.
Hey, that was the most natural sponsor plug you could have thrown in there.
They didn't even pay me for that one. That's just...
And it's going to be on my channel, too.
Yeah, well, you know what? Okay.
Perfect.
Coming clean here. I'm on my second channel. They're never going to see this. All the VPN services are pretty much the same. Like my main vetting process for the VPN was like, does it actually work? Yes, it does. And will it actually work with Netflix? So like before I took them on as a sponsor, I tested them with Netflix and made sure that that actually worked, because that's one of the claims that every VPN makes, but a lot of them you can't get through Netflix stuff or whatever because Netflix keeps banning their servers and they just didn't get new servers that Netflix hadn't banned yet. I have not tested them with Netflix recently, so I can't tell you if that's still true, but I did make sure before I took them on as a sponsor that yes, they could actually, like, the claims I was making for them are actually true. Aside from that, every VPN's the same. You're going to take a performance hit when you sign up for a VPN, but they have their uses. I don't connect through the VPN regularly, but I do use Surfshark myself when I'm traveling and stuff for extra security, or when I need to see, like, I use Surfshark to connect to go to the Surfshark website to show the proper price in US dollars to take a screenshot for my ads, because if I don't, it gives me the Canadian dollars prices, and then I'm saying one price and it's showing another. So I use them for that. That's a very, very niche use case, but like VPNs have their use. This would be one of them. But yeah, like basically all VPNs are the same. They're all cheap. So just go with the one that your favorite creator is being sponsored by. Hopefully your favorite creator is me and you go Surfshark, but like,
for
you could...
it was Atlas VPN for me when they were sponsoring me.
I actually had to turn Nord down because like they offered me a sponsor spot after I signed on for like a 6-month deal with Surfshark, and I'm like, well, you know, I'm not going to promote, like, I don't think Surfshark actually has a non-compete clause in their contract. I'd have to reread it, but like from my perspective as someone running a channel, it's like, I could promote 2 different VPNs at the same time, but that looks kind of sleazy.
Mm-hmm.
But and I've had good luck recently getting Netflix from outside the US through Surfshark or through other VPNs.
I'm not gonna lie, guys. I just use the integrated VPN that's in Opera. I just use that.
Yeah, no, there are definitely free ways. That has its upsides and its downsides, though. Like, depends what you're looking to get out of it, I guess.
Yeah, for the Netflix thing, Opera works really well, but if you're trying to like protect yourself on like video games and stuff, it's only for the browser.
It's only your browser.
It doesn't work for everything.
Oh yeah.
But don't you want a VPN while you VPN?
Lee Bradley uses Surfshark. Yeah, go Lee. So yeah, that confirms that it still works with Netflix, though. He was saying you can get Netflix from outside the US.
Bet.
So yeah, like I like Surfshark because they've been good to me as a sponsor. It is kind of annoying. Like they seem to have this thing where like every ad I do, they have to make some change just so that they feel that they've had creative input somehow. Mm-hmm. It's just like, add this asset at this timestamp. It's like, okay, I will do this. So like, I've just come to accept the fact that when I upload the ad, everything will be perfect, except they want one more asset added in at a specific time. And like, only once have I had a Surfshark ad go live with no revisions.
So wait, so eventually, if you have to keep on adding ads or adding assets, eventually you'll have this one Surfshark ad that's 30 seconds, but yet has to flash 1,000 images in those 30 seconds because they keep going, well, add one more.
I try not to reuse ads for them. I did for a while when, like, after my wife died, I wasn't writing new ads. But now I have Tim writing the ads for me. And Tim became a character in the ads, and he's the slob character. And I'm not sure if he intended for me to keep his name as the slob character. He was just like, I'm not coming up with names, so it's Tim and Rhino. so I don't know if he intended for that to happen, but that's what happened. But yeah, I like the Tim character, and I had fun with, like, the first one I shot with the bag of chips. I spilled so many of those chips on myself. It was disgusting. Like, I had to vacuum the floor immediately after I did that because there were just chips all over the floor because I was purposely eating them, like, sloppily. On top of that, I had, like, normally I run the ads on my podcast. I think I actually cut that one out because there's so many, like, mouth noises and chip bag crinkling and stuff like that. There was, like, if I heard that on a podcast, I would fucking hate that. Yeah, but did Lee use the Rhino code for Surfshark? Doesn't matter. I don't actually care because they don't pay me based on who signs up. They just pay me a flat rate. So I don't care how many of you sign up or if you use my code. If you do use my code, though, then that encourages them to re-sponsor me, which they've been good. I've been with them for a couple of years now, I think. Anyway, back to the tweets. Oh, this is fun. PragerU says, when the lead singer of your favorite band gets canceled. So I love this because this came at the same time as that news article about the Pensacola College or whatever canceling a concert because one of the singers is gay. This is not about that. This is about the lead singer of the band The 1975, which I'd never heard of before this.
I've never heard of them either.
Yeah, well, apparently he went on a podcast and they did like racist accents and, you know, he said some controversial stuff and then people tweeted mean things at him. Nothing of his was actually canceled. They are still, I think they're still on tour. They're still making music together. Like, he's still the lead singer. But they're saying that he's been canceled because people are tweeting that they don't like that he was doing racist accents on a podcast.
Anybody having an opinion on anything you do is automatically you being canceled on twitter.com.
Yeah, so, but this is funny, though, because PragerU, I guarantee you, they're not going to cover the Christian college that literally canceled a band for being gay, but they'll cover this guy who was not literally canceled because people don't like that he was being racist.
But
and I like
Rhino,
I watched
hearing is important.
I watched the PragerU video in preparation for this stream. Their whole argument was it was a comedy podcast, guys. Clearly, he was just making jokes. Are those jokes that I would have made? Probably not. But it was a comedy podcast. It's like, okay, I'm joking is not a good defense for doing racist shit.
Like, if I can understand the position that comedy, we should be able to be more offensive in comedy because we know it's comedy. But I think that there's a line. Like, let's say you're watching Family Guy or South Park or you know, The Simpsons. If they do a joke like that, you know from the framing of the show, the entire thing is 100% in jest. When it's a podcast, there's always that chance that somebody's just tongue-in-cheeking it the entire time just so they can say racist shit and then hiding behind the comedy factor. He was doing
over-the-top Japanese accents when talking about the Japanese people who were in concentration camps in World War II.
Yeah, no, there's a line there.
Yeah.
There's a line that has been crossed.
Yeah, that's like there comes a point where it's like you can't just get out of that by saying it was a joke, guys. Like, but and this is not something that you can not recover from. Like, to give an example, I make no secret of the fact that I really love the Puzzle in the Thunderstorm podcasts, like God Awful Movies, Scathing Atheist, Skeptocrat. I love those podcasts. If you go back to their archives and listen to their early works, they say the N-word. Lots. It's very uncomfortable. I hate it. Like, every now and then I'll be like I always need to have a podcast going because if I don't have someone else saying things in my ear holes, then my brain is saying things to me that aren't very nice.
That you don't like?
Yeah, so I always make sure I have someone else talking to me. And so, like, if I run out of recent podcast episodes to listen to, I will sometimes go back into the archives and listen to old podcasts of shows that I like. And I've done that with them before. And it's just like, no, I'm not going to the archives of this show anymore because that's not good. But, like, they have, like, as they go on, they're like, yeah, no, we recognize that the jokes we were making back then, they were not good. Like saying it's comedy is not a good way to, like, it doesn't get you out of that. So, like, they've come around on that and they no longer say the N-word, and they, like, there are jokes they used to make that they don't make anymore, and they've changed and they've grown as people, and, you know, that they have not been canceled for that. And should they be canceled for that? Like, they probably got a lot of backlash from what they were doing. Mm-hmm. But they used the feedback to change and grow. So it's not like making bad jokes and racist jokes or whatever is something you can never recover from. It's just like, in order to recover from it, you have to be sincere about it.
You have to stop.
Yeah.
You stop doing the stupid thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's PragerU. So the thing that they're always going to do is they're going to cherry pick an event, blow it up into astrological proportions, and then make a 5-minute video about why it's the most important thing in the world.
Did you just say
This is what they do.
astrological proportions?
Yes.
Come on, Suris.
No. I don't want to come on anywhere. Not here. You haven't cleaned.
I can bring back the picture of the dildo if you need something. If you need some help with that.
If I need some help.
Boop, dildo.
That's much better.
You think the stream will get demonetized?
If the stream doesn't get demonetized, the version of the video on my end will.
I did not swear in the first 15 seconds.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
I thought
Might be fine.
I thought about saying the word dildo in the first 15 seconds just to see if that did flag the bad language bot. But then I realized I had a 2-minute countdown and I'd have to like pop in the first 2 minutes and be like dildo, which actually could have been kind of funny. So maybe I should have done that. Too late. Too late now.
Eat the monetization hit for the joke.
Whatever. Like I say, I don't do stuff on this channel for the monetization.
Very true.
Christopher F. Rufo.
Oh, God damn it.
Do you know this person? I don't know.
Chris Rufo is the person who is responsible for the entirety of the panic around CRT and the entirety of the panic around trans people and LGBTQ grooming in schools. He is the one that wrote up the documents that Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Tucker Carlson, and everyone else has been using from the beginning.
I'm kind of glad I didn't know about this guy. And now I regret that you told me about him.
Yeah, no, he is... Like, when it comes to things that the conservative punditry bitches and whines and moans about, for the last 5 years, Chris Rufo has been the person that has provided the ammunition. That has been his job in that sphere of people for years now.
That's unfortunate. Anyway, this is about AI. It says Biden's new executive order creating a national DEI bureaucracy has a special mandate for woke AI. The order instructs federal government to protect the public from algorithmic discrimination and to deploy AI systems in a manner that advances equity. I mean, if you see the words advances equity and you think that that's a bad thing, you're the bad guy.
You're unironically the Jack Horner of this story.
What's wrong with Jack Horner?
Have you not seen the new Puss in Boots movie?
Oh, I was thinking of Jack Horner, the paleontologist.
Oh no, I was thinking of Jack Horner, the villain of Puss in Boots.
Oh,
you're an irredeemable monster. Yeah, I know.
When you say the new movie, are you referring to the one with Humpty Dumpty in it?
No, I'm talking about the one with Lobo, the Death God, in it, and Jack Horner.
How old is this one?
It's in theaters right now.
Oh well, no, of course I haven't fucking seen it if it's still in theaters. How current do you think I am? The only reason I saw Avatar, the new Avatar movie, is because it was playing on the fucking cruise ship that I was on.
Look, Rhino, all I'm saying is you owe it to yourself to see this movie. It's a very good movie.
Maybe.
The Lobo's in The Last Wish? Yes! That's where all the furry porn is coming from, Sylvia. Jesus Christ. Have you guys not seen the uptick in furry porn?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, hey, at least if you're into like cartoon porn and furry porn or whatever, at least like everybody in the videos that you're watching is a willing participant.
Yeah.
Unless they're animated in one of those sweatshops in Asia.
This line right here was not a willing participant in the events that followed.
No, the person who drew the line did not want to draw that line.
Oh my God.
There is no ethical consumerism.
Let's see here. The part that he has circled here, when designing, developing, acquiring, and using artificial intelligence and automated systems in the federal government agencies shall do so, consistent with applicable law in a manner that advances equity.
Yeah.
That seems so innocuous.
It seems so common sense. Like, don't break the law and don't discriminate. Like,
yeah.
What's wrong with that?
It is my God-given American right to discriminate.
Yeah, but
You
it's not the
fuck.
federal government's God-given American right to discriminate. I mean, they do it
Actually, once upon
anyway,
a time
but it
was,
shouldn't
but-
be. Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, if you think the federal government doesn't discriminate, then, but at least they're trying to say they're going to put in an effort to not discriminate.
They're trying to get a little better.
Okay, let's move on. This is the one that I think this is a surprise that you don't have. I love this one on so many different levels. So he says, you cannot saber rattle enough about the sexualization of children. If you aren't willing to die on that hill, you're just not willing to die. At least you're not willing to die with honor.
The first sentence.
Yeah, okay. So
You can't saber rattle enough about the sexualization.
There's a couple
of
things
children.
about that. First off, the scary part of that is that the phrase saber rattling implies violence on the other end. So it's like he's literally saying violence against people that support trans right. Like that's what he's saying here. But the funny part of that is that saber rattling is a phrase that, like, maybe I'm wrong here, but my general impression when I hear the phrase saber rattling, what I think of is people that are posturing and trying to make themselves look more intimidating than they are. People who are lying about their prowess and abilities to scare the enemy out of the fight so that they don't have to fight them. Not because they actually could beat them in a fight, but because they don't want to fight. They're afraid of the fight themselves, so they hope that they can scare the other person away because they know they can't beat them in an actual fight. Like, that's what the phrase saber rattling means to me.
So,
am I wrong in that?
You know the phrase republicanism and conservatism are a death cult?
I haven't heard that phrase, but it doesn't surprise me that it has been said.
When I look at this in the context of what you're saying, it basically paints the picture of a person who's willing to just antagonize others so much without having anything to back it up, and then die in glorious combat, I guess, and they're happy about that. That's what they wanted.
Yeah,
that was the plan the whole time.
That is what I picture from this tweet, and that I'm not going to lie, the thought of a person like this dying because they threatened someone and couldn't back up their threats, and they fucked around and found out, that makes me happy. We're getting demonetized for sure now.
Oh yeah, 110%. Look,
I am not advocating for violence against this rep person. I'm not saying I actually want to see him die in combat against a trans rights activist. I'm just saying that he painted that picture and it made me happy.
I can say that the thought of it made me smile without that getting us in trouble. I was like, what was it? There was a video that I did recently where I was talking about protests. I just went like, look, eventually when you push people in protests, we go back in time to the parts where people used bricks in protests more often than not, where like the distinction between a protest and a riot was a little more blurry. Eventually, you get to that point, and if you think that current protests, peaceful ones, are very uncomfortable, a lot of bricks will make you really uncomfortable, and enough bricks will make you really quiet. You don't want any of it, but you keep pushing marginalized people, and eventually that's what happens.
On an unrelated note, it's not that hard to find out the home addresses of certain Supreme Court justices. That's completely unrelated to anything that Suris just said.
It is unrelated.
It's an independent.
It is just useful information.
It's just an independent thing.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with anything that was said previously.
I'm not advocating for anything with that. It's just a statement. Just a statement of fact.
Mm-hmm. It was comedy, actually.
We should probably move on before I actually get myself into trouble, which maybe I did. Okay, this one has backstory, and it makes me, I don't know. It was so frustrating, but in the most fun way. So this person, this is the end point of a thread where I argued with them back and forth for like 15, 20 tweets or whatever, so it started with, so Josh Bowen on the whole backstory to this tweet. Josh Bowen on Twitter. He's the guy that wrote the book, literally wrote the book on slavery in the Old Testament and how, basically the Old Testament does endorse slavery. The New Testament also endorses slavery, but he didn't really touch on the New Testament because he specializes in Hebrew, not in Greek. That's Old Testament stuff. So he looked at the Old Testament. Like that's his specialty. So he wrote the book on it. It was like, yes, it endorses slavery. It endorses chattel slavery in these contexts. And, you know, there are some limits on it. And there is the Hebrew indentured servitude thing that has more limits than the chattel slavery thing, but they had both. And that's the thing. And so, someone was arguing with him saying like, oh, well, you need to explain using the philosophy of ethics why slavery is immoral, because you can't explain that without God. And Josh did the Josh thing of saying, that's not my area of expertise. I'm just perfectly comfortable saying that slavery is bad, but like, I'm not a moral philosopher, so I'm not going to give you the big long explanation for it. I'm just perfectly happy agreeing that slavery is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone with a PhD in moral philosophy entered the chat and was like, yeah, I have a PhD in moral philosophy. Slavery is bad. To which it wasn't this person, it was someone else. So it was like, okay, lay that syllogism on me then.
Well, I thought it was like, wasn't the syllogism literally just like 3 parts? Like
no, that was my syllogism. So I'm like, you know what? I don't have a PhD in moral philosophy, but I can do the syllogism on why slavery is bad. That's easy. So I retweeted it and be like, premise 1, owning other people as property is bad. Premise 2, slavery is defined as the owning of other people as property. Conclusion, slavery is bad. And it's like, that's the syllogism. It's logically valid, and I'm pretty sure it's logically sound as well.
Within the context of its parameters, it is. The argument somebody could give you is that it's circular?
Yeah.
Would be the argument somebody would use?
Yeah, but it is sound. It can be circular and sound.
I mean, yes,
I didn't say it was without problem. I said it was. But so this person popped in and was like, "Oh yeah, well you can't define good. You can't define what is good and bad without God." And I was like, "Okay, well," and so I was like, "Okay, you know what? Define good or bad however you like. Do you think slavery is bad?" And then it was like, "Oh well, if we're defining bad however I like, then bad is meaningless because everybody can define it differently."
Just say slavery is bad. It's not hard.
Yeah, that was what I was doing. I wasn't letting them distract with this definition fight over what counts as bad, what counts as good, or whatever. It was just like, no, just do you think with your definition of good and bad that slavery is bad? Oh, but you can't define bad. It was like, I'm not saying that I can define bad. I'm saying with your definition of bad, do you think slavery is bad? Can you just say that slavery is bad? And he never said it. This whole thread, never said it once, kept on deflecting, going on to other things, and like this was the termination of it, whereas like, if you think each human defines bad however you like, which is not what I said. I was like granting hypothetically your definition of bad. This is not me saying anyone can define bad any way they like. Mm-hmm. That's 2 separate things. I'm saying, for hypothetically speaking, I will accept your definition of bad. Do you think slavery is bad? But anyway, he says, then bad would be a non-existent subjective illusion, like a tooth fairy, which also has a definition but still doesn't exist. It's like, okay, well, your God has a definition but doesn't actually. No, your Christian God barely has a definition, because every Christian defines them differently. So that's basically the same as not having a definition.
Congratulations, everybody. We just got into theological non-cognitivism. Let's go.
Yeah.
But this whole thing just like agitates me, because like, okay, so I'm a pragmatist, right? So for me, the easiest answer to this is actually, yes, everyone can individually choose what is bad or what is good. And at the same time, we have to recognize that as a society, there is a set of agreed upon principles that help society function better. So even if an individual person thinks being able to kill everybody they want is good, but as a society, we recognize that that may not be the most practical to keeping a working labor force going, for instance, then we might say that that's not a great thing to do. And so whether or not it's ultimately good or evil stops mattering when we start talking about how much utility there is in a human life. It's very easy to find 1,000 ways to define good and evil, and it's very easy to find 1,000 ways to justify not calling something, or not saying that morals require a god for something. All it requires is a bunch of people getting together and utility. That's all that you need.
Yeah. Well, I could have argued about the definition of bad for this. Like, I have a 45-minute video on my channel where I talk about where atheists get their morals from, and in that video I do address this whole tendency that apologists have of being like, oh, well, before we can talk about whether or not this thing is good or bad, you have to agree to my definition of bad, which relies on the existence of a god.
Nope.
Which, like, no, divine command theory is a terrible way to define good and bad, because then you end up being like this person who is incapable of saying that slavery is bad, because they know that as soon as they do that, they have admitted that God's actions in the Bible are bad because God condoned slavery.
There was a when my channel was newer, like maybe the first year or so that I had it, the guy who helped me work on my PC around that time, he had a daughter who started dating someone who was Catholic. And the dad explained my channel to this guy. And somehow it got me into the conversation with him about what things are good and are not good. And I remember these specific words that came out of his mouth. And they will always stick with me because they are the most absurd but telling things. I think ultraviolence is okay so long as God says so. Yeah. Exact words. Ultraviolence was the term used.
Yeah, the word you're looking for and trying to avoid saying is genocide.
Yeah.
Like that's what I think when you say ultraviolence in that context. I'm thinking of the times that God commanded and committed genocide.
Said my definition of good, does it spark joy? This brick, it sparks joy. When I throw this brick, it sparks joy.
So that's actually kind of the video that I'm working on right now. It's this guy talking about how the statements, be true to yourself, do what makes you happy, and I forget what the third one is, but it's something along the same lines. He's saying how those are terrible advice, and he's relying on a super hyper literal interpretation of those statements to say that they're bad advice, but at the same time the advice that he's giving is basically the exact same thing, just like with a bit of like a tiny bit of nuance. So it's like, be true to yourself. That's bad advice, because if you're true to yourself, what if you like the thing that you want to do right now in the moment is going to make you happier, but like not as happy as if you delayed that gratification and did something later on or whatever. And it's like, yeah.
So the moral argument for edging? I love that.
Yeah, basically. Well, that's how we get into the marshmallow test discussion, because like I go way deeper in on that than he ever did. He's just like, yeah, no, kids who didn't take the marshmallow and then they do. But what's fascinating about the marshmallow test, the original test was it wasn't about seeing how well these kids would do that could delay their gratification. The whole thing was, we don't know at what age the ability to delay gratification shows up at. So we need to figure that out, because most studies at that point have been done on kids 6 and older. So they're like, let's do it on 4 and 5-year-olds and see what happens then. And then the secondary purpose of the study was the kids that could delay their gratification. What distraction techniques did they use to help themselves delay that gratification to the point where, like, because there were actually 4 different groups, and the group that did there was one group that the treat that they were waiting for was sitting right in front of them. There was one group where both the treat that they were waiting for and the less good treat was sitting right in front of them. There was one where just the less good treat was sitting right in front of them, and then there was the 4th group where nothing was in front of them. The group with nothing in front of them did the best, because they didn't have the temptation there, sitting there staring them in the face with like, I really want that. Well, it wasn't marshmallows in the original marshmallow test, ironically.
I think it was like a chocolate chip cookie, wasn't it?
No, it was pretzel sticks and graham crackers, or animal crackers. So it's like, if you didn't have anything sitting there staring you in the face tempting you, those kids did better. Most of those kids, which we're talking small sample sizes here, it was like 6 out of 8 of those kids were able to wait for the full 15 minutes, whereas the other groups did significantly worse. And so one of the things they looked at was how did the kids that delayed their gratification, how did they accomplish that? Like, what did they do in order to, like, what activities did they do in the room? Because they were just told to sit in the chair and like not play with the toys that were also in the room. Like, you just have to sit quietly in the chair. And so, like, some of the kids would, like, play games with their hands. Some of the kids would talk to themselves. They would sing songs. My hero, the best kid in the study, in my opinion, my absolute hero, took a fucking nap. One kid just took a nap. It's like, okay, well, I can't eat this now. I'm going to sleep until I can eat it. Like, I love that kid.
That kid is me.
Yeah.
That kid is me. No, seriously. That kid is me. When I know that there's something that I have coming up in like 5 hours or so, I will literally just go to sleep for a few hours to pass that time faster.
Yeah, that's what that kid did. So, but like that's what they were looking at. They were looking at what methods did these kids come up with to delay their gratification. And then in the myriad of studies that were done after that, they expanded upon that, and they found, like, you know, like not having the stuff right in front of you, but picturing the things would also cause you to not delay the gratification. But if you picture the abstract qualities of the thing, so like for the pretzel sticks, if you think about how crunchy and salty they are, but you don't think of the actual pretzel sticks, that will help you delay your gratification. But if you think of the actual pretzel sticks, then you want the pretzel sticks now. So like it's absolutely fascinating, and nobody ever goes into all the nuance that goes into these studies. And then of course there's the more recent studies that are like, hey, you know, this might not be measuring the ability to delay gratification. It might be measuring the kid's trust in the authority figures, because if a kid comes from an environment where the authority figures in their lives are not trustworthy, they're not going to wait for that second treat that's been promised to them but hasn't been delivered yet. They're going to eat the one that they can have now. Because, like, the only treat that's guaranteed is the one that I have in my mouth currently. So, like, there's so many implications from these studies that just gets completely ignored when it's covered in the media. And so I go into a bit of a deep dive on that, because that's what I do. I go on tangents that are completely unrelated to the video, except for just, like, a tiny little bit. That's why my videos are, like, 45 minutes long now. Frank Turek says...
What? YouTube likes that.
Yeah, apparently it does, yeah. Marriage is between a man and a woman, according to Jesus, to become one flesh. That means sex. When they say one flesh, that means sex. So marriage is for sex. And ultimately, according to Genesis, the reason for that is procreation. So, yeah, more confirmation that he's talking about sex. That's one of the primary reasons for marriage, to bring forth the next generation, to bring forth children. So, like, a couple things here. Does this mean that, like, a heterosexual couple where one of them is infertile is not a valid marriage?
So actually, fun fact, this is the thing that I got Mike Winger on when we had our debate. Because I forget what it was, but we were talking about like the value of a human life or something. And I said, like, hey, is all human life valued equally? And he said, yes. And I went, okay, cool. If all human life is valued equally, then we should treat all human life the same, right? Yes. Okay, cool. So that would include legally, right? Yes. Okay, cool. So when we talk about gay marriage versus straight marriage, why should we not treat those differently? Oh, well, they're different. Okay, cool. Why? Well, one is made to, bring forth kids. Like, okay, cool. So what about infertile couples? Well, that's different. No, the fuck, it's not.
It's not. It's the same.
It's not different. And then, of course, he got his ass saved by modern day debate when that happened, because the moderator was like, this doesn't seem relevant to the discussion. Yes, the fuck it was. That was agitating. Ocean and I were both having fun grilling him, and then he got saved by James. But, I've had this conversation with a big apologist before, and I've seen them have to get saved by the goddamn moderator. It's agitating.
How is that? Like, what was the debate on?
I believe it was on, like, the value of humanity across atheism, Christianity, and paganism. So it was a three-way debate between me, Mike Winger, and Ocean. I guess James didn't realize that was actually going to be a 2-on-1 debate, all things considered.
I mean, I could see an argument that that's not really relevant to that specific point, but, like, also it is. Like, if you're going to treat gay people differently than straight people just because they're gay, that speaks on how you are valuing those lives.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, Yeah, no, I don't know. You can make an argument that the Bible is actually not anti-gay, because like in all the spots where it tells you not to be gay, there is some ambiguity with the language. Like in the Old Testament passages, it might be talking more about pederasty than actual homosexuality, like the relationship.
The lying with a male as if with a man, or
Yeah,
as if with a
and
woman.
there's also some evidence of editorializing, like the editor that put the various accounts together kind of messed with it a little bit, because like there's some things that don't quite fit the theme, like it's something about the glosses that come after the sexual immorality things, like you shall not uncover your mother's nakedness, for she is your mother. You shall not uncover your sister's nakedness, for she is your sister. And then when it gets to the father one or whatever, it like adds on extra stuff that like it seems to be there to justify the fact that like in what looks like might have been the original, if you take away the stuff that doesn't really fit with the pattern of the other laws, it looks like male and like gay relationships, it looks like they would be permitted, because otherwise why would you forbid these specific gay relationships? So like they added in stuff about how it's an abomination to sleep with a male regardless. And so like that, so the implication there is that like, you know, if you're forbidding a man from sleeping with his son, it's like, well, if a man sleeping with a man is already forbidden, you don't need to forbid a man from sleeping with his son, because that's already covered by that.
Yeah.
And then in the New Testament, every time it uses the word homosexuality, it's a Greek word that the only time we have ever seen it used in any context is in those two passages in the New Testament. Like we don't know what that word means actually. We just get it from context clues. And so arguments could be made that it doesn't actually mean homosexuality. It could mean other things. Like I forget what the meaning. I saw that like someone had argued that it means this other basically rape. Like it could just mean rape.
Eep.
Yeah, but like so an argument could be made that the Bible is not anti-gay.
Yeah.
That said, you do need to bend over backwards in order to make that argument. In our modern translations, it does clearly say don't be gay. And, you know, if a Christian thinks the Bible is inerrant, then they're going to
they're going to go off that.
Yeah, they're going to go off that. And like, speaking as a former Christian who thought the Bible was inerrant, I also thought the translations were inerrant. So like, yeah, no, maybe it didn't. Like maybe the Old Testament things originally were referring to pederasty, but this is what they say now in our modern translations that were inspired by God. So that's what they mean.
I mean, when I was a Christian in PCA, we were taught not only that the Bible's inerrant, but specifically the King James Version was inerrant. And I didn't realize the lengths at which someone would go to specifically try to defend only the King James Version.
Yeah, that's like
until Steven Anderson did a documentary where he went to Greece and tried to like literally just take a King James version of the Bible and shove it at a whole bunch of random fucking people.
This was back when he was allowed to travel places?
Yeah, this is before he was banned from 34 different countries. And if you don't believe me, look up Steven Anderson Rule 34.
Yes, do that. Do that now. Google that with safe search off.
Everything will go well.
Yes. All right, next, Ray Comfort. Okay, we're done. Time to roll the credits, because I have a basement to clean. So, yeah.
That's a weird way to say you're going to go douche.
Would I say basement for that? Well, yeah, I guess anal douching could be the basement, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think you were going to do it to your urethra. That would be kind of painful.
Little bit, but I forget what it was. It was probably on a podcast or whatever, but I heard, I think, I don't know, there was some like famous, like it might have been Kellogg, the guy from Kellogg's cereal he was famous for having the asylums where he was trying to get people to not have sex ever, and like that's how the cereal was invented, was supposed to be this boring food that takes away your libido.
Cornflakes.
Yeah, okay, but like what I'm getting at here is that Like there were accounts of this person masturbating while putting things in their urethra. And like no, this might not have been Kellogg, but there was someone that like they were known to do it like with a toothbrush, and it's just like, how? Ooh, like ow, what? No.
Yeah, no, that hurts.
Olivia
That
Williams
hurts to
says,
think
"I'm
about.
back. I'm sorry that you came back at this moment, Olivia. I truly am." Because this was the worst time to come back when I started talking about shoving toothbrushes up your urethra. Because like, oh god, I can't even say that without cringing. Anyway, yeah,
It's time to go clean a basement.
it's time to go
my
clean a
friend.
basement. I'm putting it off because I really don't want to, but I have to because they're coming tomorrow. And I still need to finish my script, so like I got work to do tomorrow, so I can't clean the basement tomorrow, so I got to do it now.
Yep.
So thanks for joining me. I will talk to you later next week.
Go
Probably.
bye.
Bye.